Hello, and welcome everyone to the very first session for the second PeopleSoft Innovation Summit. This is the keynote presentation, and we are absolutely thrilled to have some great presenters here today. My name is Scott Lavery, and I'm the head of marketing here at Appsian. And I couldn't be more excited to welcome everybody back to the PeopleSoft Innovation Summit. We did this once back in September, and are so thrilled to be doing it again. So our presenters today are representatives from Oracle, the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure team, Appsian, Astute Business Solutions, and version 1. And before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping notes, one of which is everyone is on mute. The session is being recorded, and we'll be sure to post the registration, the video on the registration landing page for free on-demand viewing within the next week or so. Also, the session will be about 60 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, actually this keynote will be 90 minutes. And we will have time for some Q&A from the audience at the very end of the session. So if you want to put your questions in the question section of the control panel, you're free to do so, or you can wait until later in the session. So please feel free to do that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick things off. I will turn it over to Arvind Rajan to begin today's presentation. Arvind?
Hey, good morning, Scott. Thank you for welcoming us, and thank you everybody for taking time to attend the second version of the PeopleSoft Innovation Summit. As Scott was saying, the previous one was a huge success, tremendous participation from the PeopleSoft community. And we're looking forward to continued success today and tomorrow with your participation. So I have the lucky job of introducing the keynote participants and informing you of what our agenda is going to be for the first 90 minutes. So let's get right into it. So here's what we have in store for you today. We're going to have Craig Micus, Senior Director for Enterprise Cloud Architecture at Oracle, and Vish Patwardhan, Strategy and Business Development at Oracle, kick off with a keynote, and they'll talk about Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and PeopleSoft on Cloud and what all that means to you PeopleSoft customers. We'll follow that up with a customer panel, and we have today Anthony Bertani from Heidrick and Struggles. He's the Vice President of IT Applications. And we have Swaps Mohanty from Hennepin County. He's the ERP Program Manager at Hennepin County. And we chose both of these customers because they're both PeopleSoft customers, obviously, and both of them have cloud initiatives. Heidrick and Struggles has successfully migrated their PeopleSoft applications to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and Hennepin County is in the process of migrating. So we thought you'd be interested in hearing their perspectives and understanding why they did what they're doing and how they're benefiting from that. Following that customer panel, we'll have a roundtable discussion where we'll bring in some additional resources, including Graham Smith from version 1 Consulting, who many of you know as one of the best technical minds in the PeopleSoft world today. Then we have Vish and Craig from Oracle joining us. We have Scott and Greg from Appsian joining us. And we'll have the customers, Anthony and Swaps, also stay back to have a good roundtable discussion on what it means to be a PeopleSoft innovator. What do we mean by modernizing PeopleSoft? What PeopleSoft on Cloud means to all of you. And we'd love to hear from you and answer your questions in that roundtable discussion as well. So with that, and let's kick it off. I'll start the presentation and introduce Vish and Craig. Vish and Craig.
Thank you, Arvind. Really appreciate the opportunity. A lot of folks think PeopleSoft is a legacy application. I tend to think it's an application with an incredible legacy, a rich history, and I think it's a testament to its popularity. So over the next half an hour or so, Greg and I are both going to show you the art of the possible, all of the innovation that has been built in the application and around PeopleSoft as well. We do have a safe harbor statement. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the innovation that is getting built out as well. So we will get into a couple of areas of future. So I want to make sure all of you know that we do have this safe harbor in place here. I think it's imperative when we talk about the innovation and the roadmap and the history of PeopleSoft to understand Oracle's overall application strategy, which is really driven by all of you, all of our customers, application customers. And as a result, there are two generations of applications PeopleSoft Oracle offers today. Number one, on the left-hand side, is a very rich, comprehensive portfolio of SaaS applications that's been built out over the last decade and a half. Again, very complete. It's been supplemented by some key acquisitions like NetSuite and RightNow, Responses, Taleo, BlueKai, et cetera, and a number of others. So this represents billions of dollars of investment and a very complete portfolio of application capabilities from a SaaS consumption standpoint. So customers can have that connected experience that is based on connected intelligence that is derived from all of the connected data from a wide variety of these application sources, data sources, et cetera. All of this running on the latest and the greatest and the best platform set of capabilities as well as infrastructure. As a result, customers have the ability now to drive innovation. There's really modern capabilities, AI and machine learning built out throughout the entire application stack. There are IoT and blockchain type of applications available, et cetera. So a lot of our customers are trying to get to the left-hand side of this slide, if you will, because they're trying to get out of the application management, maintenance, upgrade aspects of being able to deliver functionality to their constituents and really focus on their core competencies. Then this is a great way of getting there. What you have on the right-hand side is option B, a rich portfolio of on-premises applications that have been around for 30, 40 years in many cases. eBusiness Suite is obviously an organic Oracle application. A lot of the others you see have been acquired. Again, represents billions of dollars of investment. In many cases, there's industry-specific functionality that is built out. Again, 30, 40 years of innovation here as well. So not all of this is available yet in the SaaS world. On top of that, almost every single one of customers, they're using these applications, have customized them. And those customizations won't be available on the left-hand side unless you find a workaround in terms of the functionality and or build out extensions to maintain those customizations, okay? So there is an inflection point that a lot of our customers are thinking about. Obviously, long-term strategy for a lot of them is to move to SaaS applications, but it's not something they can do overnight. It's a roadmap that's going to take many years because the features are different, capabilities, user experience, APIs, the technology stacks, roadmaps, customization capabilities, how much you have access to the source code of the application. All of these things are different on both the left-hand side as well as the right-hand side. So if you want to go from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, it involves typically working with an SI or a systems integrator. It requires going through a fit gap analysis, redesigning all of your business processes, figuring out what you're going to do with all of your customizations, which ones can go away, which ones you're going to have to keep around because they're critical to the unique way you do business, etc. And this can represent a significant investment, both from a time perspective as well as dollars perspective, multiple quarter and multiple year journey. So a lot of our customers are not quite ready to make that leap or make it right away. So the good news here is that for those customers, and there are thousands of PeopleSoft customers that are in that bucket, if you will, on the right-hand side. For those customers, option B is a fantastic strategy as well. And the reason I say that is because Oracle has announced support through at least 2031, so for the next decade, for PeopleSoft and all the other applications as well. There is no forced migration. Not only that, there's continued innovation in and around PeopleSoft as well. And I think some of the statistics you see on the right-hand side in terms of 5,000 plus customers worldwide, a lot of those customers moving to take advantage of the cloud capabilities and running PeopleSoft on OCI, et cetera, is a testament to the nod to this option B strategy as well. The question then becomes, well, if you're going to go forward with that strategy and SaaS is more long-term, what are some of the compelling events and imperatives you have to contend with if you're going to continue to run PeopleSoft? Well, obviously, you have to stay current with your patches, and that applies to all tiers, including your infrastructure, operating system, databases, the application itself, et cetera. A lot of our customers are still trying to deliver on a complete disaster recovery solution. A lot of them don't have that in place yet. They may have just a backup that's a day old or a couple days old, et cetera. But that's not really a true disaster recovery solution, especially for an application like PeopleSoft that is typically critical in running an organization or your business. So you want to make sure that you have a very good RTO and RPO, or recovery time objective, and a recovery point objective for PeopleSoft. So again, a lot of our customers are trying to deliver on that. They're also trying to improve infrastructure efficiency, eliminate a lot of the hardware upgrades you have to contend with, either as part of your regular refreshes and or when you go through an application upgrade, et cetera. And they're also trying to exit the data center business, which is sort of related to that previous bullet. Now, if you move PeopleSoft and all of the surrounding applications to OCI, I think you can be one and done. You can deliver on all of these compelling events and imperatives simultaneously simply by moving PeopleSoft and some of the surrounding applications to OCI. And you wouldn't be the only one. Like I said, over 200 customers have already done this. They're running PeopleSoft on Oracle's infrastructure cloud, not moving to SaaS, so not the left-hand side of the coin, if you will. They're simply running PeopleSoft as an application on OCI and then having somebody else manage it, or in many cases, they're doing the management and maintenance by themselves. So the question then becomes, well, why did they do it? What is it that they're getting? What value are they getting by moving PeopleSoft to OCI? And why would you want to do it? And I think really it's, if you look at some of the statistics for 4 of the customer case studies we have here, Gallaudet University, some of the green statistics, reduced their total cost of ownership by $500,000. Chaucer reduced their total cost of ownership by 52%. Verint reduced their total cost of ownership by 45%. CARE reduced their upgrade costs by 50%. If you look at some of the statistics in the red there, which really talk to the performance gains, Gallaudet was able to improve their batch performance by 50%, their OLTP or online transaction processing performance by 100%. Chaucer was able to improve their database performance. And this was over an on-premises Exadata, so obviously a fairly, beefy database footprint. Even over that, they were able to improve their performance by 50%. Verint improved their performance and managed services as well. If you look at some of the purple statistics, a lot of them talk to the agility improvements. So Gallaudet reduced their resource dependency by 60% through cloud automation. Chaucer improved the speed of deployment and time to market. Same thing with Verint's development instance deployment improved by 3 times. And then CARE was able to improve their upgrade timelines or accelerate that by 4.2 times. improve their deployment time or reduce it by 90%, and now they can deploy in hours instead of taking days or in many cases, weeks as well. So net, if you think about some of these broad categories, it's really about total cost of ownership improvement or reduction, improving performance, agility, and lowering your risk simultaneously. So on the risk front, as an example, it should also improve their business integration security in the process as well. So effectively doing this delivers value to all constituents. So when PeopleSoft runs faster and better on OCI, it improves user productivity. When you become more agile and you can more easily manage those instances, it improves IT productivity. And simultaneously, if you can deliver on lowering your TCO, if you can lower your risk, you're effectively delivering value to the C-suite, which begs then the question, what is it about OCI or Oracle's infrastructure cloud that allows you to gain all of these benefits? Why is it and how does OCI deliver that? And I think the answer is probably twofold. The first one is around lifecycle management and visibility across the entire stack. And I think the second reason is the underlying platform. So let me cover both of them on the next two slides. So behind the scenes, PeopleSoft application team has done a tremendous amount of work to improve the lifecycle management capabilities of PeopleSoft. So through Cloud Manager automation, you can do things like subscription-based updates and maintenance. So you can subscribe to your PUM and PRP and tool patches and so on. All of the images that's going to download those images automatically. You can do things like single click provisioning. So you can have the entire PeopleSoft application, all tiers, instantiated automatically. In the process, you can describe what the architectural topology of that deployment should be, whether everything should come upon infrastructure, whether you want to take advantage of the managed database, cloud service capabilities, including all the way to RAC and XFCS, et cetera. The PeopleSoft application team is simultaneously building out policy-based resource management as well. So now you have the ability to, or they're working on, I should say, the ability to expand and collapse environments, intelligent application management. So being able to do things like, based on whether there's a long weekend coming up, shut down all of the environments and bring them back up. You have access to the broadest data management platform. So all of the database versions and options as a managed service that Oracle offers, including RAC, including Exacloud service. For those customers that are sensitive to deploying these applications in a public cloud, they have access to cloud at customer model. So they can deploy all of this behind their own firewalls or host it anywhere else they choose as well. PeopleSoft is also certified on the autonomous database that we talk about. So the self-healing, self-tuning, self-repairing capabilities of the database, which improves the management aspects that DBAs have to deal with tremendously. And you, of course, as part of that, have access to a part of the broadest data management platform capability I talked about, have access to not just Oracle databases, but non-Oracle databases like SQL Server, which many of you run your PeopleSoft instance on, and frankly, non-relational databases as well. And the third aspect of it is end-to-end visibility. So you have access to all of the status, alerts, availability, health of the various components of the application, again, end-to-end, all the way from infrastructure and operating system at the bottom to the application and everything in the middle as well. So things like Tuxedo, WebLogic server, database, et cetera, et cetera. All of this on a single pane of glass. And the second reason PeopleSoft running on OCI delivers some of the value capabilities that we're talking about was because of the underlying platform, which is so different compared to anything else that you might have on premises or any of the clouds as well. Number one, it's priced lower and in a more consistent worldwide fashion. So anything you deploy has a consistent price. There's no variance, with the exception of a small handful of SKUs compared to the hundreds, if not thousands, that are out there, right? Everything has the same price point, regardless of where you bring it up, which is not the case in many cases with other public clouds. So you have that variance, and you have, you don't know what you're going to get in terms of your bill. There might be a sticker shock. Not the case with Oracle Infrastructure Cloud. It performs better and in a more consistent fashion as well compared to any of the other clouds and or on premises. And you don't have to take my word, an Oracle employee. You can look at a lot of the third-party case studies that have been published from Storage Review, global systems integrators, etc. That will highlight how Oracle and non-Oracle workloads perform on OCI compared to anywhere else. Security is foundationally different on OCI as well. It's embedded at every tier, and it's not optional. So everything is locked down by default. We have a no trust posture, which is exactly what you want with your cloud provider. So it's difficult to misconfigure resources as you bring them up. And there's capabilities like segregation of the control plane and tenancies. So the control plane has, number one, it's separate. Number two, it has hardened boundaries around it. So if there is some kind of malware or misconfiguration in one of the customer tenancies, it's more difficult for it to then spread to Oracle's control code or Oracle Cloud and then permeate to any of the other tenancies or any of their aspects of the cloud because of those hardened boundaries and separation. And then hundreds of other differentiated capabilities. We also have a lot of tools like CloudGuard, DataSafe, Cloud Advisor. I believe Craig is going to get into a few of those details, I think maybe in the remainder of the keynote, and then in the breakout session that he will have as well. Consumption is significantly different as well. So when you have universal cloud credits through Oracle, you effectively have a bucket of credits and access to every single cloud service that Oracle offers now and ones that will be released in the future as well. You have complete flexibility in what you spin up and how you spin up those resources. Oracle has better SLAs as well, or service level agreements. So not only does OCI offer availability SLAs compared to or similar to all of the other cloud vendors, but Oracle guarantees performance and manageability of your workloads as well, which is fundamentally different. And when you're running an application that is so critical to your business, an application like PeopleSoft, you need that. You don't have the flexibility to say, you know what, I'm going to take a couple of days extra to close my books this month end because, well, that's the way it's going to be. Unfortunately, if you have to report to the street or your business depends on a lot of those things to happen on time, you don't have that flexibility. And a lot of these capabilities Oracle can deliver on is because fundamentally the architecture underneath is foundationally different. OCI was built from the ground up to be that enterprise-grade cloud, knowing what some of the limitations were in the existing capabilities that were out there, especially for enterprise applications. Now let's talk a little bit about the innovation. There's innovation in the application proper. So there are things like selective adoption. There are things like Kibana analytics capabilities that you have access to. So a lot of innovation, of course, these are just a couple of examples. There's a lot of innovation that's been built out and will be built out in the application itself. some of the life cycle management capabilities I talked about as an example. And then on the right-hand side, all of the PeopleSoft customers that move that application to OCI immediately get access to this incredibly rich portfolio of PaaS capabilities that allow you to do a lot of innovative things, things like digital assistants or chatbots, robotic process automation, various analytics capabilities, IoT, et cetera, And I don't want to steal Greg's thunder. Greg, I'll pass it over to you if you want to get into some of the details of the PaaS and the innovation that surrounds PeopleSoft. Over to you, Greg.
Anyway, thanks, Vish. And I am excited to talk about all the innovations that are going on the platform side. It's key for everyone to understand that OCI, it's not just a platform to run your apps, but PeopleSoft applications leverage many of these platform capabilities and innovations in the apps themselves. And I'm going to highlight that as we go forward. You want to switch, move the slide, please? And while we do that, let me just a quick plug. I'm going to go into more details on this tomorrow. There's a session called Driving Business Transformation Through Move and Improve to the Cloud. And we're going to, but for the now, I'm just going to do a quick flyby, right, and give you kind of a taste for what we'll be drilling into more details for tomorrow. So with that said, I call this slide the Wheel of Fortune, right, in which where PeopleSoft is at the center of the cloud universe, and surrounding that is a bunch of OCI platform capabilities and services, right? So let me start at the, at the top, right, where, and I want to mention a couple key takeaways up front. First of all, moving to the cloud is not just lifting and shifting your apps to a new platform, right? The common term used in the industry around lifting and shifting, to me, it kind of sounds like cut and paste and just running on a different hardware. It's really about moving and modernizing to a new platform. And by doing so, it's going to let you innovate faster. And I think this is real key. It's going to enhance and enrich your PeopleSoft experience. So let me kind of drill into a little bit how OCI can let you innovate faster. And I'm going to start at the top, right, where we automate the operational efficiencies. Now, Vish referred to this a little bit, in his section, but we've built a ton of automation for lifecycle management, and you can only get that with the Oracle Cloud. No other cloud, offers the automation that we built. It only works on the Oracle Cloud, and our goal is to save you, time and effort, and by doing so in the cloud, it's going to save you money. So examples, right? We automate the patching and the upgrades. Right? You don't have to do it anymore. Right? We automate the cloning. I was talking to a customer a couple of weeks ago. Right? He was telling me that it takes anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks to clone an environment for testing. We can do that in less than an hour, right? And we let you tear it down just as quickly. So, the best part about that is that you only pay for what you use, right? Auto scaling is also incredibly important, when you get into the cloud, right? We allow you to scale up and scale out, as needed. So you need more computing power, for the month end, processing, not a problem, right? OCI auto scales based on the policies and the rules that you set up. So if I keep moving clockwise, right, building modern experiences. I think Vish might allude to, but chatbots, right? We already now deliver pre-built chatbots out of the box, right? Good example of PeopleSoft applications using our OCI platform, chatbot platform that we call Oracle Digital Assistants, right? So you can build your own chatbots, not just against PeopleSoft data, but you can build it against any data that you want, right? So you have a call center, you want to build your own chatbots, you can use our chatbot, Oracle Digital Assistants to help you, right? We also provide low-code tools to build your mobile apps and websites quickly. Right? You don't have to be a developer. Just drag, drop, and you can build applications in minutes, not days, but minutes. Right, so moving down along, if you want to build cloud native applications, right, you no longer need, to build your extensions and people tools. Right? You can if you want, right, but we provide you all the tools and the technologies to build your cloud native applications. And then you can run them in a Kubernetes container, and you can leverage some of the pre-built serverless functions, that we provide. So you can extend PeopleSoft, but with cloud native capabilities. Right, moving down again towards the 5 o'clock, right, analytics and data visualization. Right, it continues to be a hot spot for every company. Vish talked about, how we're leveraging Kibana for some of the application dashboards and reporting tools. We also provide, industry-leading BI tools and capabilities to build your enterprise, data warehouse, right? The advanced analytics, the data visualizations, the predictive modeling, the ETL tools, the extraction transformation tools, everything that you need to be able to build a world-class platform. Oracle can provide you that as one vendor. And a quick note in terms of machine learning. A few years ago, we acquired a company focused on data science and machine learning. It's the same framework that the PeopleSoft developers, the PeopleSoft engineers are building out for their own predictive modeling framework. So again, a great example of PeopleSoft engineers leveraging the capabilities of the cloud platform. So basically, you can now extract the data out of PeopleSoft onto the data science platform, build, test your predictive models, and then publish them to the PeopleSoft apps. And we're just starting to scratch the surface here. You're going to see and hear more about this as we go on. But machine learning is critical, to the platform, but more importantly, how PeopleSoft will start using it. So let me real quickly around integration and process automation. Right, as you start moving to the cloud and moving your old OLTP systems, really need to start thinking about your modernizing your integrations. Right, we offer what we call Oracle Integration Cloud Service, or OIC, and it's in the Magic Quadrant for all app integration. So if you're looking at a MuleSoft or a Dell Boomi, right, you don't have to. Right, you can leverage Oracle's integration platform, and it's considered a best-of-breed platform. And the PeopleSoft engineers are starting to build out an adapter framework that's going to make it real easy to get in and out of PeopleSoft, real easy. Right, and then we have process automation. So think about your workflows and your business processes, especially as they move in and out of PeopleSoft. Right, we have the ability to monitor that and manage that through our automated, process automation capabilities. We're also investing heavily with some of our partners in terms of robotic process automation. So if any of you are looking at RPA, right, it's something that you guys, can come talk to us, and we'd love to talk more about what we're doing in terms of this hot topic. Now, moving on to security, the key takeaway is that between Appsian and Oracle, we got you covered, right? We offer end-to-end security to meet all your security needs. A couple things I do want to highlight, right? OMC, our Oracle Management Cloud, advanced monitoring, right? We have pre-built specific PeopleSoft plugins to manage your PeopleSoft environment. That's the database tier, the app tier, the web, the web servers, pre-built, plugging into OMC out of the box, right? And I also want to call out a new tool that we're coming out with right now. Actually, it's out right now. It's called the Data Safe, right? It's the next generation security offered by OCI, right, to keep your data safe. It protects the sensitive data, and it provides risk assessments working for your data, for your users, and it provides some advanced masking features. The Data Safe team is working with our PeopleSoft engineers to provide PeopleSoft specific templates. We'll talk a little bit more about Data Safe tomorrow, but I think it's something that we're real excited about. And then last but not least, I just want to kind of mention autonomous. Right, our autonomous capabilities. Hopefully everyone out there has heard about our autonomous database and now autonomous Linux. Our autonomous strategy, some analysts have said probably the single greatest innovation coming out of Oracle in the last decade. And as you heard Vish say, right now it is PeopleSoft is certified against our autonomous database. So if you've heard the taglines that we use, self-driving, self-healing, self-repairing, right, the whole goal is for the database or the technology to do it itself, right, provisioning itself, tuning itself, configuring itself, patching itself, right. Our autonomous capabilities are there to help you to minimize those tasks and have the machine learning and the technology do it for you. So with that said, that was a quick around the world in 5 minutes. I could spend 5 hours on this stuff, but hopefully you'll be able to join our session tomorrow. We're going to drill down into some of these specific areas. We're hopefully going to show you some demos. But the key takeaway, I just want to make sure I stress, it's not just lifting and shifting to a new platform. You're moving your PeopleSoft applications to a platform of innovation built, to run our apps, to run PeopleSoft better than any other cloud vendor. So hopefully you can attend the session tomorrow, and Vish, back to you.
Thank you, Craig. So with that, I think let me pass the mic back to Arvind.
Thank you, Vish and Craig. Great presentation, a lot of good insight and value that you've explained there for the audience today. So next up on the agenda is our customer panel. So I'd like to introduce two customers who are customers and who are also at different stages in their PeopleSoft modernization and innovation journey with cloud and with other things in the mix. So if I can have Anthony and Swaps here. So Anthony Bertani is the VP of IT Applications at Heidrick & Struggles. And welcome, Anthony. And Swaps Mohanty is the ERP program lead for Hennepin County. Anthony and Swaps, if I can have you both introduce yourselves.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. My name is Anthony Bertani. I'm our Vice President for IT Applications at Heidrick & Struggles, based in Chicago.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Swaps Mohanty. I'm an IT division manager in Hennepin County in Minnesota, and I'm based in Minneapolis. Thank you.
Welcome both, and thank you for taking time to participate and to share your experience with the audience today. So let's start with maybe both of you just giving us a brief overview of your view of the world as it relates to PeopleSoft applications, because of course we are at the PeopleSoft Innovation Summit. And Swaps, maybe I'll have you go first. Take a few minutes to describe Hennepin County's relationship with PeopleSoft. Obviously, it's a long history, and so that's the case with Heidrick & Struggles as well. And talk about where you are today. What are some of the things you're working on?
Certainly. Thanks, Arvind. Hennepin County is one of the largest counties in the state of Minnesota, and we our 2020 budget was about $2.4 billion, and we serve about 1.3 million residents, and it's an organization of 9,000 plus employees. That's the footprint of the organization. And then regarding our PeopleSoft journey, we started our first implementation of our HCM pillar was in 2010, and in 2011 we implemented Fin. Today we have we are on tools 857.12. Our Fin is on MS36. Our HCM is on MS24. Our database is on 19C on Exadata. That's the on-prem setup. We are in the so we cater to all the departments. It is the source of truth in Hennepin County for our HR and finance systems. We have a data warehouse in place where we feed information from PeopleSoft into the data warehouse that caters to the finance as well as HR business customers. Right now, we are in the process of moving our entire PeopleSoft setup to Oracle Cloud. We started that journey. The actual project had a kickoff on January 4th or 7th, one of these two dates, and we are just wrapping up, finishing our functional testing for our first instance. So it is on a really fast track, and we are teaming up with Astute. So far, what we have seen has been pretty impressive. So that's our PeopleSoft footprint.
Thanks, Swaps. That's a good overview. So in short, it's a mission-critical system, and you, my friend, are in the captain's chair, surveying and commanding all of that mission-critical infrastructure and applications. So thank you for that. Anthony, can you go next, please?
Sure. Yeah, so kind of the history with PeopleSoft, with Heidrick & Struggles. First off, we're an executive search firm, so we do recruiting for C-suite individuals. We're a global organization. PeopleSoft, we've been using as our financial systems for probably, I think 10 to 15 years, I believe. There were some big efforts years ago to consolidate a lot of the different instances we had. We had financial systems that were based in Europe, some that were in Asia Pac, and there was a big project probably 12 years ago to consolidate those onto one corporate PeopleSoft financial system. So we've been on version 9.0 for quite some time, probably, I've been at Heidrick for about 5 years, so it's been at least that, probably 10 years or so that we've been on that version. And it's critical to our financial systems. It's you look at the the risk factors around any application, and this is one of our core applications and probably the most audited and important one for the firm. So it's important to make sure that it's running well and that it's running optimally as well. So we're at a different stage than where Hennepin County's at. We actually did a lift and shift and upgrade of PeopleSoft financials last year. So we started back in, I think it was February of 2020, and we went live in August timeframe. So it was about a 6-month effort or so. And we partnered with Astute as well. And it was very much a technical focused upgrade. For us, we were sort of end of life with our on-premise PeopleSoft solution. So we were on old versions of operating systems, an old version of the Oracle database. And the business wasn't quite ready to make the move to a true SaaS solution with an Oracle Financials or something along those lines. So, but we had to do something, and this is what we chose to do. And so we did that project. We've been stable now for about 4 or 5 months in production and running off of OCI. And we've upgraded to the latest versions of People Tools as well as PeopleSoft 9.2. So it was a great experience for us. And at this point, we've looked at the next 3, 4, 5 years as continued evolution of our PeopleSoft platform, and we're looking at ways to further optimize it as we move forward.
That's great, Anthony. So let me piggyback on what you just said, but before I do that, just for the audience, I wanted to share a little tidbit. So Anthony and the team at Heidrick & Struggles organized a virtual go live celebration after the project went live successfully on OCI. And as I've seen with many of customers, I found a team at Heidrick & Struggles that has been part of the PeopleSoft implementation since day one. As a matter of fact, Jagan, your IT manager, had pictures to show off the implementation when it was first taken, right? So these are stories that I hear. I'm sure Swaps has stories like that at Hennepin, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where it started and whatnot. And today you are on the cloud and you're looking to do more with PeopleSoft. So that's great. So Anthony, let me start with you and ask you, when you went to Oracle Cloud, obviously there must have been some sort of a decision-making and evaluation process. So can you talk to what led?
Yeah, sure. For us, when we went to infrastructure as a service on OCI, and we saw lots of synergies with moving to the OCI platform. We're using, a mix of AWS and Azure in other parts of our firm, but for the PeopleSoft instance in particular, it made a lot of sense for us to move to OCI. Leveraging the DBaaS services, being on an Oracle database. I know we talked a little bit earlier around a lot of customers are actually on SQL Server databases. We considered migrating from Oracle to SQL Server, but it was sort of it would add a lot of complexity to the project. So we just stuck with the Oracle database. So again, being an Oracle product really made a lot of sense for us to stick with the OCI platform. It was new to us. I think though, if you're familiar with any of the cloud providers out there, you can pick it up. That was, I think, one of the challenges for the group was being able to, our infrastructure team to get them up to speed on how to use OCI. But once you've kind of used it in any sort of capacity, it's something that you can pick up. But you do need to invest the time to bring your people up to speed that are going to be supporting that platform. So we learned it. It made a lot of sense from a cost perspective, and we chose to go the route of OCI.
Yeah, that's interesting, Anthony. I remember working with you and Jagan, and one of the things that we had to share with your decision makers was why not AWS? Because you're already on AWS, right? And your operations team had a set procedure, architectures were built, operational procedures were built. But I think the Oracle on Oracle Cloud value proposition with some of the things that you mentioned did prevail, and it proved to be a success. So Swaps, same question to you is, can you talk a little bit about the path to Oracle Cloud? And, in your case, we know that you have a significant Microsoft footprint, Azure's in play. So how did that road lead you to Oracle Cloud for PeopleSoft?
Certainly, thanks, Arvind. Yes, we have been talking about Oracle Cloud or some sort of cloud presence for quite some time, and we are The county is so far, we have a major footprint in the Azure cloud because all our Microsoft tools are in a platform as service set up with Azure, and our Active Directory, identity access management, and all those things are in Azure. So one of the things that we knew that we will look at Oracle Cloud very closely was the Oracle Cloud Manager. You get a lot of good tools and features with that one. And on our on-prem setup was an Exadata infrastructure. So, and we were actually at a point where we needed to reinvest in our infrastructure. Exadata was coming to the end of life, or like, at least renew those platforms. So there was an investment. And as I have heard Arvind say this one, many people in Oracle say the same thing, is not whether you should go to the cloud or no, is when you would go to the cloud. And so we knew that it is probably worth a shot. And we just didn't know how to get started with this one. So we have been talking about it and toying with the idea for a couple of years, attending conferences, talking to other counties, other customers, and then finally we decided to kind of go with a new Exa setup and in the cloud. So we are actually going with the X8M platform, and so it's supposed to be brilliant. So I'm just excited about it, and we're looking forward to it. And another bigger benefit of going to the cloud is Oracle releases all their new features and updates in the cloud environment first. Then it comes to the government cloud, then it comes to on-prem setup. So we were kind of a little bit behind, even though there are certain solutions that we were looking for in different image updates. So we thought this will be another benefit. And then the speed that I think Craig was just talking about it, you get done with things really fast, and spinning up your new infrastructure is not weeks anymore, is in hours. And so it's very hard to walk away from those things. And that were some of the key features that helped us move in this direction.
That's great, Swaf. I think a couple of things that I would like to highlight in what you just said. Exadata, which everybody knows or everybody's familiar with, is Oracle's engineered hardware system that customers have purchased and used on-prem, mostly the larger customers like Hennepin County. And Oracle is the only cloud that offers Exadata as a cloud service if you want the same processing power and performance in the cloud. So that is probably one of the drivers for your decision-making. Plus, if I were to compare your story with Anthony's story, Hennepin has multiple PeopleSoft applications, whereas Heidrick & Struggles has just one, but both of the applications, both of the organizations found value to a lot of customers who are at that critical juncture where, it's not that they cannot manage and run PeopleSoft applications on premise. They're quite competent at that. But when it comes to the decision of whether we should invest in new hardware or not, we now hear customers say very firmly that we don't want to be in the data center business. We don't want to be in the hardware business. So Anthony, what are your thoughts on that? And can you talk about whether there was a top-down initiative at Heidrick that also contributed to the cloud decision?
Yeah, great question. I was just in my head thinking about, we had already had a significant cloud initiative before we even did this project, right? We've been looking at all of our data centers. Heidrick has, again, we're a global firm, and we've got maybe 3 to 4 different data centers on-prem, kind of the old legacy data centers that we've been using over the years. And so we had already sort of put that ball in motion a long time ago. And I would say our financial systems, back office systems were one of the last ones for us to actually push off into the cloud. So it was a goal of, our technology departments, one of our objectives in general, just to get to the cloud. So this was just the icing on the cake to be able to do that for our PeopleSoft financials platform. And there's lots of benefits to that too, right? All of the kind of, not that you still don't have to do some maintenance on your infrastructure as a service, but you get a lot of kind of protections in place by going into, a cloud-based provider that makes the overhead and maintenance of those systems a lot less. And we wanted to, like Arvind said, get out of that business. We're actively exiting different data centers and moving things to the cloud. So it's something that I've actually really enjoyed working at Heidrick, and the focus that we've had on doing that, and getting the efficiencies out of that for our teams as well.
Great, thanks, Anthony. So similar question to you, and you spoke a little bit about the Azure footprint. So can you talk a little bit about other cloud initiatives that were already in play at Hennepin? It was not that it started with PeopleSoft. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct. So we actually, Microsoft Office tools have been a big part of our Hennepin offerings to our employees and partners. So everybody was trying to, so we have a huge contract with Microsoft, and we wanted to take advantage of all the Azure offerings. So that was already there. We actually got out of anything on-prem, and everything is in the Azure cloud as far as our tools and email, SharePoint, Teams, and you talk about all those office productivity tools. And all those things were handed over to Azure. And the way we look at this one is like, you maintain the platform, you maintain this thing, it's kind of like a SaaS solution. We reduce our risk by transitioning it to Microsoft. So there was that concept. And so that was already there. And we were, of course, looking at like, can this actually go to Azure? Can you put it here and then hook to Oracle databases just for your data, but like, your front end and everything is in the Azure cloud kind of thing. So we had some conversations around that. As I mentioned, our cloud manager is one thing that we were after. It'll have added benefits in an Oracle PeopleSoft setup. So that's where we started. Now we use the Azure experience that we have within the organizations to guide us in having some questions to in terms of who should we select, what are the questions that we need to ask to make sure that it is secure, or at least our security concerns are addressed, and things like that. So once Astute came on board, then actually we had a very effective and good conversation between Astute, my division, and our central IT, where the CISO and CTO are housed. And that's how we kind of came to this conclusion that it's a good decision to take the Oracle PeopleSoft setup to Oracle Cloud, but let's just use some of those Active Directory setup that we have in Azure, connect those things, and then enhance the multi-cloud setup for Hennepin County.
Great. And for the audience, one of the things that I think was also a key factor in Hennepin County's decision was Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and Azure having a partnership, which is called the OCI Azure Interconnect. So Hennepin, for example, can federate Azure's Active Directory to authenticate workloads on OCI, and you can run workloads in both systems and still have a very fast connectivity between the two, not have to traverse that over the internet and avoid latency issues and things like that. So, but I think something else that you said, Swaps, which I found very interesting, is at Hennepin County, as with many other customers, what we're finding is that while the discussion for cloud migration, cloud evaluation and selection first, and then migration, may start with one group like the CIO and that organization, the decision really affects everybody, right? And you see the CFO, the CISO, everybody's involved. So Anthony, can you talk a little bit about business stakeholders at Heidrick & Struggles? And I know there were a lot of eyes on that project. They wanted to know how it was going and how successful it was. So can you talk a little bit about what their lookout was when this project was selected and when it was being implemented, and what their measure of success maybe was for PeopleSoft on cloud?
Sure. Yeah, I think our major stakeholders in this, obviously our corporate finance group, who are the ones that are really the heavy users of our PeopleSoft instance. We talked about our CISO, right? Obviously our CISO is one of my peers, and security is paramount at all firms these days. And I would say he was, that group in general information security was another big stakeholder in this. And when you do a project like this, I don't want to say you have a clean slate, but you can kind of rejigger things as needed to maybe address some things. We were, out of compliance on some software versions that we were using previously, and there were some, flags on different parts of the application that we were able to do away with. And I know our information security team was happy that we were able to do this move and close those gaps, which was great. I think on the finance side, our major stakeholders, in particular, PeopleSoft Financials, we use General Ledger, we use AR, AP, sort of all the core billing functions. They were our major stakeholders there. They were along for the ride the entire project. They were part of our functional testing. They got trained throughout. Obviously, it was a jump to go from 9.0 to 9.2. So we were very cognizant of making sure that they were, on the train with us as we went through this journey. So that was key to our success as well. So I think, yeah, and then just you mentioned CIO too, right? The IT team in general, to have a more maintainable and robust and modern platform to be running PeopleSoft on just makes our lives a ton easier. So that was another huge benefit for us.
Swaps, do you want to comment more on that, on the different teams that handle stakeholders and their involvement in the project?
Certainly. So we have, as I said, PeopleSoft is the source system for our finance and HR data. We do everything in partnership with our IT organization. As I said, our CISO, CTO, CIO are a part of that group. So we actually teamed up with them and made sure that there was conversation going on between Astute and the IT organizations to address any kind of concerns or questions around security, infrastructure, expandability, and things like that. It's going to be fine how people will connect. So IT played a big role in that one. It's actually our CIO is one of the executive sponsors for this project. And then we also had another key stakeholder. I report into Office of Budget and Finance, and which that department is headed by our CFO. That's my boss. So there you go. There's an interest in the finance world. So he is there. We have HR as a partner for the HCM side of things. So these are the key stakeholders that we needed to make sure that they are involved in these things. In fact, and so these are all the internal stakeholders. We had Oracle as our external partner. So they, in fact, we had Oracle folks came and then spoke in our project launch. And then Astute, of course, is our implementation partner. So Arvind also was there in the project launch. And these people, when they talk about the importance of the project and what they have done and how it is important for the organization, and PeopleSoft being an enterprise system for Hennepin, it's not just my division, it's not just IT, it's the entire Hennepin County. That's how we looked at it. And it has been actually beneficial in how we have approached this one as a big team versus my area. I'll involve you when you need to be.
I think it's fair to say that moving an enterprise application, which is mission critical for most of our customers, if not all, cannot just be a siloed initiative. All the groups in the company have to be involved, from business users to IT leadership and finance and HR and so on. And I think the success of the project also depends on the cloud provider's involvement and their investment in the solution. Not so much so from the implementation standpoint, but being there to guide and help if there are any issues. Now, we've all been around in IT for a long time, so we can't pull the rug over anybody's face here and say, hey, this was smooth sailing all along. We did not have issues. The issues are part of these projects, cloud projects, and having the vendor like Oracle in this case being available to support that through their customer success manager and their executive sponsorship was also, I think, important for both of you. If I may take, we have about a few minutes left, a couple of minutes maybe. I think what I see also for the audience's benefit, because they may not know you as intimately as we know you, if I were to compare and contrast the two organizations, Heidrick & Struggles runs a single PeopleSoft application. They decided to not just move that application to the cloud, but incorporate a 9.2 upgrade in that process. So it was almost like, you can think of it as two projects in one. But at the same time, Heidrick did that with a very lean in-house team. They did not have a large team. Most of their infrastructure support was outsourced to a third party. Hennepin County, on the other hand, just for the audience again, has multiple PeopleSoft applications, a much larger IT and finance organization, customer like Heidrick and struggles, and also a heavy investment in Oracle engineered systems. So I see customers of different sizes, complexities, different team sizes, all considering cloud initiatives for their PeopleSoft applications. So maybe there's something in that for the audience. The last question I have for both of you, and maybe Swaps, I'll ask you to go first. You're still in the middle of your implementation. It's early days. You're probably, I think our go live is around the summer of 2021. But if you had to give some lessons learned based on where you are today for the audience, where people may be thinking about a PeopleSoft to cloud migration, what would be the one thing or one or two things that you would like to share with them?
So I would say that, like, there are two things. One is find the right partner, because we have been talking about it for a couple of years, and we thought that, like, hey, we know enough in theory. I can't emphasize the value of having someone who has done it before. It makes things a lot easier, puts you in a much more comfortable position. That's one. Second thing is, as Arvind was saying, it is an enterprise platform. Is the entire organization should be vested in this one. The sooner you get to that point in bringing the organization behind it, make it a enterprise-wide initiative, is going to go much faster. And one thing that I learned is you actually don't need 2 years to migrate. It can be done much faster. We learned that from Astute. So get it done. It actually can be done.
Thank you, Swaps. And Anthony?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because this project we had on the books for probably the last 4 or 5 years. It was always something we put in budget, but for one reason or another, people were either scared to do it or just didn't want to do it. And we really saw this as a need to move forward. And like Swap said, finding the right partner is key. We have a very small team. We didn't know OCI. We didn't know what the latest version of PeopleSoft could give us. We didn't know what Fluid was. So we had to rely on partners to help us with that. And we went through that process. I would say, make sure you understand what it is you're trying to do. Are you just trying to do a cloud move? Are you trying to do an upgrade? Just be real succinct about what's the goals of the project. Is it just a technical thing? Maybe you want to fold in some sort of functional enhancements to the system as well. Figure out what your goals are up front, and then find your partner based on that. I think that Astute, we got introduced to Astute. I was really impressed by their client testimonials that we saw at Oracle Open World, and this is somewhat of a niche part of the business, but they did so many of these upgrades that it was very easy for them to jump in and understand where we were at and help us get to that point. So I think the last lesson learned, I would say, we did hypercare at the very end of the project, which I think is key. Just make sure you've got, whether it's a couple of weeks or a month, to make sure you've got, your partner available to help you in case there's any bumps in the road. That's key. And then I would say, making sure who's going to support your system on the long run, right? I think we probably could have got our own internal infrastructure team kind of up to speed more quickly and been along for the ride, more sort of lockstep with us throughout the project. So that transition was a bit easier. I think that was one thing I probably would have focused on a little bit more if we did the project again.
Anthony and Swaps, it is a pleasure having you on the customer panel. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to chat with me, share your insights with the audience. It was a pleasure. Thank you again.
Thank you, Arvind.
And I welcome you to stick around. We're going to start our roundtable discussion now. So if I can invite some of our roundtable partners, we're going to have Vish and Craig from Oracle join us again, and Graham Smith from Version 1 Consulting, and I believe we're going to have Greg Wendt from Appsian as also joining us. So welcome, folks, and I'll just give everybody a couple of minutes to join us and settle in. If you're going to turn your camera, that's okay. I see Graham, Greg's here, and let's just give Vish and Craig, are you guys here?
Yep, I'm here. Unfortunately, I can't get my webcam to work.
I'm going to try and turn my camera on. Give me 30 seconds, but I'm certainly here.
No problem.
I can chime
No
in and
problem.
answer questions in the meantime.
All right, so let's get started. And we just had some seed questions for this roundtable, but it does not have to just be these questions. We are happy for the audience to participate and give us questions to the chat, and we can throw that across the bow to the roundtable participants, and they can answer questions for you as well. So we'll start with this one, and the question is, why is OCI better for modernizing PeopleSoft? So maybe Craig, I'll throw this over to you and Vish together. Maybe you guys want to take a first crack at that, and then others in the panel can also talk about it.
I'll jump in, Vish, if that's okay, and then you can follow up. I think two words come to mind, right? Automation and autonomous. And I talked about, I know Vish and I both talked about the automation that we deliver, right? In terms of the patching and the updating and the cloning. And I think all of that helps drive, the efficiencies that we talked about and being able to do things quicker and faster. I think being able to provide, the chatbot capability, and it's not just building the chatbot capability into PeopleSoft, but leveraging the platform, the Oracle Digital Assistants as the platform to build out the chatbots that provide them the self-service, capabilities of your customers' employees, that they don't have to wait on a phone, they don't have to, go through email, right? They can just basically get on a chatbot, ask a question, get the answer, and move on. And I think those kind of things, help modernize. Now, from a pure technical perspective, the stuff we're doing around autonomous, I think is absolutely critical, because it's going to allow your staffs and your technical administrators focus on more on the value added stuff and get out of that maintenance, right, that they typically do. So allowing them to start leveraging cloud native capabilities and moving and getting themselves into the cloud, I think is critical.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well, Craig. The only thing I'd add is that it's being able to deliver value, additional incremental value to all of the constituents that an application like PeopleSoft touches. So if you're using HCM, it's not just your employees, it's frankly talent that you're attracting as well, all the way to your users, to your C-suite, everybody that you have to have, PeopleSoft is going to serve. When you deliver value, so your chatbot example.
Vish, I lost your audio. I don't know if others did or not.
Okay.
No, I'm hearing you.
Okay. All right. So it seems like some folks might be having issues with my audio. I hope you're able to hear me. But so let me just keep it short. I was just going to say that when you can deliver incremental additional value to all of the constituents through new capabilities that you can build around the application, things like chatbots, things like analytics, that tie in not just PeopleSoft data, but all of the other systems that are ancillary to PeopleSoft as well, that deliver the entire business process. That's where you see the power of the cloud and PaaS capabilities or platform capabilities come into the picture, along with the innovation that's getting built out in PeopleSoft application proper. So I think it's both of those things that really help you deliver on that value. Back to you, Arvind.
It looks like Arvind did lose audio. Arvind, are you able to progress the slide forward and we can move on to the next question? I'm not sure if you're able to hear us.
I'd just like to add one thing to that question about modernizing PeopleSoft in the cloud. It is true that if you license PeopleSoft, you have PeopleSoft Cloud Manager. That you get that for free, and you can only run that in OCI infrastructure as a service. And any PeopleSoft system that you provision inside PeopleSoft Cloud Manager, you can fully automate the updating of PeopleSoft patches to PeopleTools, and you can do entire PeopleTools upgrades in Cloud Manager. Your end users won't necessarily thank you for a technology decision, but they will thank you for making things faster and for reducing their downtime windows when you're doing essential system maintenance. So that's just all I would say. PeopleSoft Cloud Manager is well worth a look at for automating large parts of what you do inside PeopleSoft.
Okay, very good. And while Arvind's still back, I'm not sure if you're able to hear us yet, Arvind. We could certainly go to the next question. It's not there on the screen. We have why move to the cloud on the screen, but I can maybe direct this to Vish or Craig. And that's, how is PeopleSoft on OCI more agile and configurable? That's obviously a big value proposition.
So this is Vish. I'm happy to cover this. I touched on this in the keynote, but really when you think about your strategy, when you're going to continue with PeopleSoft as your on-prem ERP, it gets to how you deliver incremental value. The way you deliver incremental value is by getting out of the things that slow you down. So if it's things like hardware refreshes, if it's things like being able to deliver new reports, new functionality, new add-ons, extensions to PeopleSoft, so your users can be more productive, if that's going to take you a long time. And the reason it typically takes a long time is because many times you have to go through procuring hardware, applying patches at all tiers, getting things set up, and then doing the development of whatever needs to be developed, getting that tested, etc. If you can streamline all of that effort, if you can have your cloud provider or infrastructure management done in an automated fashion, well, you're going to be able to deliver that incremental value much quicker. All the while, if you can also increase security, make sure that some of the things that you may not have been able to deliver on, things like disaster recovery, you can deliver those as well. And at the same time, lower your total cost of ownership. Well, that's a win-win-win across the board. And I think, that's what you get when you move to OCI. So I think, again, why move to cloud? It's so you can deliver on all of those aspects. Craig, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that.
I think our audience would love to hear from the panelists, right? The partners and the customers. I mean, from their perspective. So I mean, if guys,
security. So Greg, I know you're the security expert over there at Appsian, and you talk to PeopleSoft customers all the time about security and how they need to continuously watch out for that and improve that. Do you have a comment on that one, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, security is definitely something everybody needs to keep an eye on. And the move to the cloud typically makes people think about it more. Part of it, I think, is the contracts and just the shift. Some organizations think, well, I'm in the cloud, I'm definitely more secure. Others, there's just a fundamental shift that think if they go to the cloud, they're less secure. But really, if you think about security today, it's about insight, understanding, and controlling the access to what people can do. So when you're talking about moving and becoming more agile, if we think about security and just access as a whole over this last year with COVID and how much was thrown up in the air with not just security, but how people access their apps, where are they coming from, all of those different touch points. A lot of organizations realized that, they had to be really agile. They changed their ERP systems from maybe nobody accessing them to now they were at home and it was just self-service access before, and now all of a sudden it's complete back office high privileged access. And with all of that, scope changes. A lot of privacy laws, things are coming in that are changing effects on what are going on. I mean, Graham has to deal with GDPR. That's a life cycle. It's a checks and balances. You always have to make sure that you're getting better at what you're doing, and there's always a process flow that has to be followed. So security is definitely something that's come into the limelight, especially with the shift of just how these apps need to be more agile, post COVID. And I think organizations are figuring out, maybe you know, from an architectural perspective, maybe it is a better use of my resources to go to the cloud, spend more time being able to leverage what we've delivered versus more time having to maintain what we're delivering. You know, but from the security side of it, you know, from our customers, what we've seen is it's regardless across the board because of those particular challenges, you know, in the last several years. And I think organizationally wise, it's interesting to see what some of the organizations are being challenged with. You know, resources, time, money in COVID have really put in some constraints that maybe before weren't a problem. You know, so now they're having to pick maybe 1 or 2 projects versus, hey, we're going to do 10 projects. So it's interesting to see what happens with that in the organization and which ones they decide on as well.
Graham, you talk to a lot of customers and you work a lot on cloud and of course on PeopleSoft. What are you seeing when you have these conversations with customers? Does the move to cloud trigger a change to the status quo where they feel that they need to be better at managing PeopleSoft, managing security, and so on?
Yeah, so every cloud conversation that I have with PeopleSoft customers always begins with, look, what problem are you trying to solve here? Do you have problems that you need to solve? And they might be performance. And you know, we know when we hear stories of PeopleSoft customers who are running Oracle database technology that on-prem and they've migrated to OCI and they've seen marked improvements in performance. But maybe performance isn't their issue. Maybe security is their issue. I mean, you know, it's not unheard of that some malicious actor spins up thousands of virtual machines in the public net and spams you know, a company's PeopleSoft web server with millions of requests and creates denial of service attacks. How do you safeguard yourself against that? Well, you know what? If you're running PeopleSoft on OCI, you've got some very, very sophisticated edge networking services that you can easily spin up that will detect those and safeguard against them. So the problems they might be having is, you know, whenever Oracle releases security updates, which come out quarterly, we know it's a regular cycle. They're in a constant cycle of patching WebLogic, Java, and Tuxedo. If they move to OCI, will those patching problems be solved? Actually, they won't. If you're not patching WebLogic today and you migrate PeopleSoft to OCI, WebLogic's still not going to get patched. Now, there are tools available within OCI, tools like Ansible and Puppet and Chef that you can script to automate some of that. But if you're not doing it today on-prem, move to OCI, it's not going to happen from day one unless you make it happen. But it enables some of those things to happen, and that's key. They become the catalyst for increased agility. So my conversations always begin with what problems you're trying to solve and focus on those, and they're many and varied.
That's a great comment, Graham. Thank you. Anthony, I think you were talking about how that PeopleSoft project was on the list of projects at Heidrick & Struggles for several years. Was cloud a catalyst in moving that project forward? Did it accelerate timelines? Did it finally bring it into the right budget scenario for you guys?
Yeah, that definitely was a contributing factor. I think you know, the end of life on the platform too, and the decision to not move to, you know, the traditional SaaS, I say traditional, but the more modern SaaS solution within Oracle Financials was much more the driving factor. I think there was just, you know, there was a trepidation too, and I think we really needed someone to just kind of champion the why around this, and we couldn't kind of keep kicking the can down the road, so to speak. We had to do something, and there were several different you know, vectors around why we needed to do it, and that's really what the driving force was behind getting that done. Having OCI available and a platform that could host PeopleSoft in a more synergistic way was good as well, and that helped us to. But I wouldn't say it was kind of part of the business case, but it definitely made it easier to move it forward.
Yeah, I think we have a savvy audience here, so we don't need to tell them that cloud is not a magic wand that you can wave over PeopleSoft and it'll automatically solve all of your problems. I think they get that. But I think the takeaway here is cloud can be the catalyst, as Graham said, to trigger change. And often oftentimes you find, and you all know this, you're used to doing things a certain way, you like it, you don't have to change it, you don't have to redo processes, documentation, training, and you just let it go from year to year, and soon you find out, oh, the last time you touched a process or an automation routine was maybe 10 years ago. So cloud can be the catalyst to drive agility in that sense, where you can use that move to the cloud, not only to take advantage of all the things that Oracle provides, that Vish and Craig spoke about, but on the operational side, how you manage, operate, secure, maintain PeopleSoft, that's still on you, right? I mean, it's important in the cloud discussion, as we talk to customers, we always talk about what is the shared responsibility model for PeopleSoft on cloud? As a customer, what are you responsible for? As a cloud provider, what is Oracle responsible for? And if you have a managed service partner, where do their responsibilities start and end, and so on and so forth? So it's important to understand that, but you can certainly take advantage of things that are available in cloud infrastructure and platform to make your PeopleSoft applications that much better. So let's move on to the next question. Is OCI a step towards SaaS? And we thought a lot about, putting this question up on the panel, and, this can go in many different directions, but one of the reasons why this question is there for the roundtable is software as a service is something that a lot of customers are evaluating and investigating right now. And we know that at some point in the future, customers will adopt SaaS, and they will no longer be on PeopleSoft. We also understand that for different customers, the timeline is going to be different. Some customers may be ready to do it in the next year or two, others maybe not for 3 to 5 years, who knows. But how can cloud infrastructure and platform be an interim step towards the longer-term objective of going to software as a service? I'll just throw this out, whoever wants to take this one first.
This is Vish. I'll take a stab at it. Look, like you said, that journey is going to be different for a lot of customers. The question is, what do you do with the application footprint you have today to get ready for that journey? So when you do decide to move to SaaS, you have done everything you can to enable that journey to make sure that it is as seamless and painless as possible. You have to understand that when you're moving PeopleSoft and your other applications to OCI, that is exactly where all of your SaaS applications are running. So my belief is that if you're running multiple modules of PeopleSoft or other ERPs, other applications, by that I mean financials, HCM, etc., when you move to SaaS, you're not going to do it as a single project. It's going to happen in phases. You may start with financials or HCM and move on to other areas. So thinking of sort of peeling off those modules one at a time becomes easier when the application that you're moving to is running side by side. In the meantime, all the innovation we keep talking about, all the extensions, analytics capabilities, chatbots, etc., that you're going to develop, those value adds are not going to go away. They're going to keep running on OCI alongside PeopleSoft today, but when you switch these modules, you simply have to point those to the new application. So regardless of your strategy, of your application strategy, all of the investments stay in place. I'm not going to trivialize it. Of course, there's work involved. It's not simply just pointing that link to a new application, but it's a whole lot easier than having to start from scratch. So you're getting yourself ready to that, jump, that journey over time, and all the while delivering additional value to your constituents.
I don't know if OCI is an automatic step towards software as a service, but what is software as a service? It's a service of applications that you subscribe to, and you leave somebody else to worry about the hardware, the database, the application, the upgrades, the maintenance. Well, I know PeopleSoft customers who are running PeopleSoft in the cloud, and they don't have to worry about any of those things either. They subscribe to a service from their preferred partner, and their partner manages all of that for them. They just give them a URL to log into, and their system's automatically patched, monitored, maintained, and they never need to worry about it again. They get the best of both worlds, maybe. PeopleSoft as a service without the hassle of having to maintain the infrastructure.
That is a great comment, Graham. And the only thing I'll say to that is, when you think about one of the differences between SaaS and PeopleSoft, even when it's being managed by somebody else, has been the frequency with which some of the updates might be applied, and the control you have over the application itself. So in the model that Graham was talking about, you actually control all of the application, the code base. You still have access to all of your customizations, the ability to customize that, which is somewhat limited in the SaaS world. So that's one difference. And the second difference is, the innovation that we keep talking about, not just around PeopleSoft, but within the application itself as well. So with continuous releases, with selective adoption, you have a lot more flexibility in when and how you adopt those changes and those updates. And you can do that at an increased frequency as well. And the other thing I want to just quickly add there was, one of the changes that the PeopleSoft development team has made is that releases are now available on OCI before they are on-prem. So for example, with People Tools, a new release will be available on OCI sooner than it would be on-prem. So it's much easier and much quicker for you to consume those updates and apply them in your instances.
Anthony, I know you are running PeopleSoft on OCI now. We heard you talk about that earlier. But was there some discussion at Heidrick about just leapfrogging from PeopleSoft directly into software as a service before you made the OCI decision?
Yeah. I mean, that was, I think at the end of the day, our finance group wasn't ready to make that investment. I mean, that's a big change, right? You wouldn't, I think the challenge there is not only is there a technical component to that, but there's an entire functional component because you're moving to an entirely different solution. And they just weren't ready to make that move yet. So I can't see how that wouldn't be our next big project down the road. I think answering this question here, is it a step towards SaaS? I mean, I think the mental shift of it is one piece. If you're an organization that hasn't quite, either there's trepidation around moving to the cloud, or you're not familiar with it. Even though this isn't like a guarantee, you do get out there. You do get to use, infrastructure as a service and get comfortable with the concept of the cloud, right? So in some ways, there's a bit of a mental shift that this is possible. This can help us and maybe push you over, kind of the edge to go to a true SaaS solution. So, and a lot of it depends too on the complexity of your implementation. And for us, our PeopleSoft implementation is pretty complex. So to unwind that and move to a true SaaS solution would just be another monumental effort. Not that we couldn't do it. There's probably lots of simplification efforts that can come out of that as well. But we weren't ready for that quite yet.
Thank you for that viewpoint, Anthony. So Swap, I know you just turned your video on. I hope you were listening in, but we were talking about, OCI, is that a step towards SaaS? And Graham commented about, PeopleSoft can be run as a service. If there's a managed partner that can take care of managing infrastructure, platform, application maintenance, and all you're doing is providing input, setting the schedule, and providing business requirements, right? So it is possible, and several customers are already doing that. What is Hennepin County's view on this? I know you already have some SaaS applications, O365. Many people may not realize. Then you put your productivity suite in the cloud. That's software as a service too. So, any comments on that, Swaps?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I look at the Office 365 product set as tools, whereas the PeopleSoft would be your ERP platform. So there is data involved, business process automation, those things are involved. That's where the distinction is. You actually use PeopleSoft, whereas you use the O365 tools to build things. That's the difference. Is SaaS a step forward here? Is again, like, we need to do a little bit more study on seeing, like, how far are we. My understanding is you have to have a very lean setup to switch to SaaS, let's say. Yes, it does transfer the risk. You don't have to worry about the patching or anything. Somebody else does it. But, as Graham was talking about, if you are in a infrastructure as a service or platform as a service setup with PeopleSoft, then you are already halfway there. Your effort to stand up your instances, scale it up, down, goes down from weeks to hours or half a day per se. So, it's already a big step for us. And I think that the question that many of us have in mind as customers is, mine is not a very clean environment in terms of no customization. It's not the best vanilla version. We do add customization. We add different things. What happens to those things? How do they transition? So I think, those things needs to be analyzed. At this point of time, I think we will see the benefit by just going to the cloud and taking advantage of all the automations that is available in that setup. So SaaS probably is a few years down the road for us to be the earliest. That's what I'm thinking. But things can change. Technology evolves every day.
Yeah, thanks, Swap. Again, very, very good perspective. We find a lot of customers like yourselves who are heavily invested in PeopleSoft with multiple applications over the years. And it's hard to just pull that out and put a new system in. I think customers recognize that, so they're trying to derive more value out of their PeopleSoft investment. And we also know that one of the things that PeopleSoft customers love most about PeopleSoft is people tools and the ability to modify, customize, and extend the application. Because no packaged application out there is going to be 100% fit for all of your business needs, right? So we know that. SaaS does put restrictions on it, but it gives you platform services to build extensions, but that's a complete start over. So I think as long as PeopleSoft is giving customers the flexibility and the ability to manage that and be smart about it, right? We're not necessarily saying continue building invasive mods in PeopleSoft, but PeopleTools now gives you the ability to build modifications, but still build them in a way that don't affect delivered code and functionality. So you can streamline maintenance and operations. So folks, I want to thank all of you. I know there's a lot we could talk about, and this could just go on and on. There's some great points to be made, but we are at the end of our time, and I don't know if you have any questions, but I'll hand it over to Scott and Greg at Appsian to close this out. And I thank all of you again for taking time to participate in the keynote, in the customer panel, and in the roundtable. Your insights and opinions are very valuable, and I hope the audience got a good value out of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Arvind. Would you actually mind moving to the last slide for me? I would like to thank everybody. Obviously, Arvind did an amazing job of being our ringmaster here today. Thank you, everyone. The panel, the customers who joined, thank you guys so much. We will have another session in about 10 minutes. We'll be hearing from Arvind again. He'll be talking about disaster recovery for PeopleSoft. That is going to be taking place in about 10 minutes. I would be remiss if I didn't mention what you see on your screen here, which are a handful of the upcoming PeopleSoft educational events that are going to be happening throughout the year. These are all events that Appsian participates in. You're probably familiar with user groups like HUG and Quest and OHUG. This is just a sampling of some of those conferences. We highly encourage you all to sign up and participate. These are all virtual. At least that's my understanding at the moment. And so I would also like to encourage you all to follow Appsian on LinkedIn and Twitter. That's a great place to get upcoming information on different summits that we're going to be planning and participating in. Everyone will be receiving a survey on Friday. We are currently planning the next summit, as we typically do, and so any feedback there is greatly appreciated. And everyone should have received an email yesterday in reference to the Slack channel that was created for PSFTSummit. And I would highly encourage you to go check that out. It's a great little opportunity to do some additional networking and ask questions of the presenters and just generally start meeting other people in the PeopleSoft space. So if you're interested in taking a look at that, it is psftsummit.slack.com. Again, that's psftsummit.slack.com. And in about 10 minutes, we'll be hearing from Arvin again and talking disaster recovery for PeopleSoft and why it's a must-have and not a nice-to-have. So stick around. Thanks, everybody. We will be right back. Bye-bye.